Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Charles Cole III, and I am the author of the Agentic Black Parent Ebook. And today I'm really lucky because I get to sit with potentially the book's biggest fan. I know her affectionately as Mama Toya, and ever since I wrote this book, she's been the biggest advocate. She's led sessions and trainings on it. She's continuing to do that. And today she gets to interview me. How you doing today, Mama Toya?
I'm doing really well. And first of all, I want to thank you for, allowing me to interview you. And I heard it was your idea, so thank you very much. So I'm Toya Algarin, and I have 3 children.
Okay.
They're in their 30s, and one is 25 years old. I have 7 grandchildren, right? So just when I thought I was done, they pulled me back in, right? So I actually work part-time at a school, and it's so funny how I found your book to be one of the biggest resources for my parents, right? And the other thing I just want to say, Dr. Cole, I might come out and call you Oakland. Okay, I'm just
you can call me whatever you can call me Charles, you can call me Oakland, you can call me whatever you like.
I normally call you Oakland sometimes, but anyway, so the first thing I want to ask you is, why did you write this book?
So there's a few reasons. There's a world, there's somewhere in the multiverse, there's a place where the book isn't needed, where schools are equitable, Black parents get the support and love that they need, Black students get a quality education. But that's not the reality. And I grew up going to a bunch of different schools. My parents struggled with drugs and all that stuff, and in and out of jail until they weren't. And they struggled to navigate the education system for me, and it was very difficult. And there's a lot of unlearning and things that I gotta kind of fix and do on the back end, and things that have impacted me deeply. And I didn't want other parents to have to deal with that or other kids to have to deal with that. And I also wanted to write the book that I needed and that they needed at the time that also gives them permission to forgive themselves for wherever they are. Because it doesn't matter if they were on drugs or went to jail or they got a PhD or a 3rd grade education, they still deserve to be able to partake in the promise of public education and what it's supposed to mean for their kids. And I want anybody that has that book to read that, and I want them to let that guilt go.
Well, I want to thank you for writing the book, first of all, right? And the funniest thing is, I know for a fact parents don't know what they don't know. Because I told you what I have, right? And I've done it really right, and I've done it really, really wrong. And I just wish, again, that I had this book. And that's why this book is so important to me, because I want to give it to parents so, they have a guideline on what to do. But I don't want to go into it yet. Okay. I'm just going to ask some questions before I give it away. So why do you say parents deserve better? What are 3 things you must know that will help parents with their own sense of urgency?
Yeah, so I'll take it in parts, right? I say parents deserve better because they do. Like, their kids deserve better. And a lot of time they hold on to guilt, they hold on to shame. So my mother at the time didn't graduate from high school. So every time she would have to go into the school and advocate for me, there was a layer of shame. Then there was somebody significantly younger than her critiquing her parenting. And she didn't feel worthy. But you have to get through that guilt so you can be a good advocate. As long as you're feeling sorry for yourself, your kid is not gonna get what they deserve. You gotta, Jay-Z has a song in his first album called Regrets. You gotta learn how to live with regrets. And I got a ton of them. Like, I have a ton of mistakes that trail behind me that I still make and I work on. But that's human. And I don't think that our mistakes should cost us more than they cost anybody else. So you have to know you deserve better to go out and demand better. And you got to forgive yourself first so you can advocate for your kids or your grandbabies in your case. If every time you dealing with that hurt and that pain, it becomes about you and not the thing that kid needs. So in that first part of that book, that's why we spend so much time with you getting through that. Hey, you made some mistakes, so what? You didn't go to the PTA meetings in the 2nd grade, so what? You here now, you doing what you need to now, and you deserve better. Not because I said you deserve better, God said you deserve better. The public education system said you deserve better. Taxes said you deserve better. Truancy laws, like all these things that are there, you got to know that. And there's a group of people that don't feel as guilty and probably have done more horrendous things, but they go out and they advocate and get what their kids need. So I don't care if you got a PhD. I don't care if you got a second grade education. If your kid is in that system, there are things there that they deserve. And I want to help parents get over that so they can go to advocate.
You know, that's funny because when you say your mom never graduated from school, my mother never graduated from school either. My mother's an ancestor now. She just passed away. And
My condolences.
Thank you. And I just find that advocacy work looks the same and different at the same time. You know what I mean? And I know that in your book you talk about establishing a strong advocacy base for families, and I'm gonna say families because I'm out there advocating for my granddaughter. You know, when my daughter's working, so I'm gonna say families. So how do parents establish a strong advocacy base?
Yeah, first off, let me just say the greatest woman I've ever met in my life was my grandmother Ozetta, who died when I was 10 years old. She carried that slack for a long time for my parents until she became an ancestor, till she passed away. So, you know, I got a special place in my heart for grandmothers, and they just got a lot of wisdom. They've been through stuff. That's one. That base is important, though, because you don't have to do this alone. I want to reintroduce the concept of the village. I think that has become all but extinct as of late. So what I mean by that, here's an example. You are a very bubbly social person. I know this because I just rode the elevator with you and it took forever to get up here because you're waving at everybody, people you don't even know. So, but you in that classroom, you got a kid in that classroom and you meet 3 other parents or 4 other parents. And then y'all set up a base with each other and say, you know what, I gotta travel this month or I gotta do this. You cover my kids this month and then I got your kids next month. They can't make it to the basketball game, well, I'll do the basketball game. You divide the labor up and you build, not only are you building support where you might miss something, but you know your kid is covered, but you are also instilling in that child how important they are because somebody else, even other than you, is gonna be there supporting them. You know, I remember one time in my neighborhood, I was cussing and doing something, and somebody brought me to my grandmama and told her what I was doing, and she said, well, did you beat his ass? Did you correct him, basically? And I'm not advocating, I'm not here to sugarcoat things, right? My grandmother was the sweetest person ever, but what she was communicating is when I'm not there and you're there, you are there, I need you to act as that parent because I know you got this boy's best interest and he know not to do that here. And so I'm not advocating for archaic, and also my grandmother never spanked me in my life, but the point is that there was a community. So when I was out and even if I wasn't in her vision, somebody else was watching, but somebody else was also caring. And that was the last time I lived in a community like that. And the irony is that's the poorest community I ever lived in. It was in Paducah, Kentucky, in this place called Lincoln Court. And everybody there was on welfare. You had everybody there was on public assistance. But that's one of the places that I felt the most love in my life ever. So that's what I mean by having that base. You don't have to do it alone. You are the quarterback of your kid's team. You are the coach. That don't mean you got to know everything, but you are the expert on that child, and you have to be the person that's putting people in position to make sure that kid has the best chance to be successful.
You know, I agree with you 100% because when my eldest children were being raised, or in school, right, I found parents in the school to help out with my kids. You know, because I worked in retail and I could get off at 11 o'clock at night, but I knew who to call. One of the best moms in the school, and at the same time, they could call on me. So creating community is the key to educating and advocating for your child. So another thing that's in your book is you put in there a scripture, Proverbs 29 and 19, where there is no vision, the people will perish, right? And I love the fact that you put it in there, and I'm thinking about community, and I'm thinking about you thinking about your child, or me thinking about my children and my grandchildren. And I want to know what is the importance of goal setting for your children?
Yeah, I'm gonna break that down in 2 parts. There's vision setting and there's goal setting, right? And I think you always have to have a vision. And in that vision, it is you imagining the best possible outcome and then trying to work backwards from that. So even in today, when I was giving a talk, before I even did that talk, I wrote a vision. I wrote a set of goals that I wanted to accomplish in that talk that maybe people be like, you don't need to write it down, you know it, but writing it down and reading it rechecks me and it puts me in a different space and it makes the thing as special and significant as it deserves to be. And then from that vision, you gotta set goals. Like you have to hold yourself accountable. Like if you just are like, hey, it can kind of go however it needs to go, then it's gonna go however it needs to go. You need to have a direction. That don't mean that you're not gonna hit bumps. It don't mean that you're not gonna fall short. It don't mean that you're not gonna take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It doesn't mean any of that. But what it is doing is saying I have an intentionality and an investment in what I'm trying to do, and it matters. Things that matter, we plan for. That's why when I am getting on the school district, I'll say, don't tell me how you feel, show me your budget, because you put what matters in your budget. So in your mental budget, what is your vision? How do you envision your child? Now, your child is gonna grow up and have their own hopes and dreams and all that stuff, but it doesn't hurt for you to envision the best future that you see for them and put them on that path and do the best that you can. Again, we're not going for perfection. We're going for effective, and we're going for, these things matter. Like, I think a lot of people look at life as these grand moments and what you do in these moments, but it's not that. It's what you do in a series of small,
baby
seemingly
steps.
insignificant moments. And how do you do that? And I've made mistakes by not doing that appropriately, and I've done some things really well by being very meticulous about those steps and how I approach things. So, we are all human, and that's the thing. Every bit of this book, which is absolutely free, by the way, and my team hates that I build this stuff and I pay for it and I give it away, but every bit of this book is giving parents permission to make those mistakes, set those goals, go hard, do the best you can, build people around you, and then, at some point you got to give it to God. At some point, you got to say, I poured as much in as I could. But you have to have some type of goal, some type of crux, especially in a system that has been failing Black kids for so long and so bad and so terribly. And that's just what I believe. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I'm just looking at this book. It's a resource, okay? And it's free, all right? But also in the book you talk, and without giving it all away.
You can give it away.
I guess you can. First of all, I got to fix this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Keep that in.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, that's the scar. I mean, the thing. But anyway, so you also in that book, ask parents or families to describe their child.
Yeah.
And how to describe your child. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so there's an exercise. My background, my first career was a social worker. And again, people have great intentions, and I think people want the best. And sometimes you gotta bring stuff to life for them. So we have an exercise where it's like, tell me the best things about your kid. Tell me what makes them smile, what motivates them, how they react when they're upset, what conditions do they thrive the best in. And what I've learned and what we've seen, even with some of the most attentive parents with a whole bunch of money and resources, and the most loving parents that may not, is that they all have struggled with answering that. Because it's like, I thought I was paying attention in these ways, but I guess there's some things that I need to do. And it leads them to have conversations with that kid. I've done it with parents and kids that were 5 and kids that were 25. And it's like, I didn't know that thing about you. And it brings a different level of intimacy, and it brings a different layer of advocacy there now. So now when you're talking to that teacher about how special your kid is, you can also give additional information. Well, when my kid is in this environment, they do better. When my kid does this, they respond poorly, or whatever the case is. But the more knowledge and information you could have, it not only brings you closer to your kid, but it also helps you teach other people how to treat your kid and what they should expect. And it also is setting up something for your kids subconsciously when you have that type of agentic conversation with them. It's saying that I respect you, like I want to hear from you. And they might even not want to do it because it's weird, it's intimate, it's a wild thing. But even if they don't have the language to articulate their appreciation for it in the moment, they tend to come back to that at some point later on. Like, I remember when my mom or my dad or my grandmama sat me down and asked me these things. And some of the stuff I didn't know. And I had to figure that out. And what I've learned from the feedback from the book is many of those conversations started, but they never stopped. And that kid started asking that parent. And I've had people reach out months later saying, my daughter and I have had just this different type of connection that we've never had before. And I'm telling her about my childhood or what my hopes and dreams were. We finding that we're very similar here and very different there. And so, sometimes you just got to give people keys to access doors to the part of their heart that they didn't know existed. And now, and that's what that exercise tends to do.
And you know what? I found that exercise so important. I gave it to my kids to pass on to their kids, right? Uh-huh. And the other thing I need parents to understand about that exercise is you don't have to do it only in kindergarten. Kindergarten, as we used to call it. You could do that in 5th grade. You could do that in 6th grade. Because a lot of times parents tend to be less involved in their child's school as they get older. But I'm just here to tell parents, please just continue to be involved in your child's school. And if you download this book, it's a great resource because he's done all the work. I'm serious. So that's great. And we want to talk about communication.
Okay. Right?
And I think that's one of the things that you were saying that was important because you have a vision for your child now, right? We know how our child behaves. We know what makes them happy. We know what makes them sad. And then so you have the ammunition, you have the words to communicate to the teacher. So you tell me how important communication and some strategies that we could use to communicate with our child's teacher.
Yeah, communication is key in any relationship, and the space in between parent and teacher, there has to be a relationship there, and you have to set the stage for that communication to be open. And when I'm talking to families, I put that onus on them, and when I'm talking to educators, I put that onus on them. If everybody got a job and a role, these things tend to work better. I give students a role. It doesn't matter how old they are. Because kids are capable. So when the tools and strategies that we build as a rule of thumb, I'll say you need to have at least 2 points of contact a semester or a quarter with your kid's teacher. You need to, we give you a page in there for you to write that stuff down where you got their name, their number, their email address, and a tracker to make sure that you're actually doing that. And I tell you, when you do communicate, have a plan of what are you trying to understand. And have like a goal of 1 to 2, maybe 3 things. Don't exceed 3. And make those things time bound. Be very specific in what you're trying to get and understand. And then you need to save that communication. If there's ever an issue or you have to go to a principal or the district or whatever the case is, you want to make sure that you have documented the efforts that you have made and what this other person has said. So even if it's not an email conversation, and that person says something to you in person or on the phone, I instruct parents, as soon as you can, go home and write an email and say, thank you, Miss So-and-so, for meeting with me today. Just to reiterate, here were the main points that we talked about. Here's what I'm going to do and what you're going to do by when, and then we're going to check back in. Let me know if I missed anything. That becomes contract. That becomes like actual evidence. That becomes, that is now into the script of what you all have agreed to as far as your kid is concerned. And people need that. And a lot of parents will go to the school, they will be upset, they will be angry for good reason, but they don't have that evidence. There's just only emotion there, and there's not a lot that you can do with that. And so I try to give people, I call it awareness, navigation, and duty. I want them aware of the situation. I want them to be able to navigate it. And I want them to instill a sense of duty in the person that they're working with, in their child, in their community about now I got this information and here's what I expect. And now you got it. So once you know better, you do better.
So the funniest thing is, right, parents don't know what they don't know, right? And I know and it goes to a story that you always tell about how when you were doing your research and you were visiting different communities, and what community said one thing, and the other community was like, no, we hire the principal this is our school, right? So I know you talk a lot about knowing your rights, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, like you have to know your rights to be able to enforce them. You can't just assume that somebody is going to adhere to those things. And I want an informed parent base. I want an informed grandmama base. I want an informed community base. And so, the story that you're referring to is when I worked in a district and we went into an affluent community and we talked about their school and their principal and our superintendent talking about how he liked that person. And one of the moms kindly raised her hand and said, we appreciate you coming here, but I want to just be clear. Like, you don't pick our principal, we pick our principal. And if that person ain't doing what we need them to do, they're gonna be gone, regardless of what you say or do. And I had a really good superintendent that actually appreciated that, because it's a community school. It belongs to that community on some level, right? And so that is, you have to establish that. You have to let parents know that, look, when you don't know your rights, you are inviting them to be trampled on. So, I think that I come from a very hard place. I come from a place where, there are people that hustle, there's people that will get over. Like, I'm from a generation where when your bike got stolen, it's your fault that it got stolen. Like, I'm not talking about right or wrong right now, I'm talking about real. And so people will argue with you about what it should be and how it should be. I know how it should be. I started out with that. In a perfect world, I ain't got to write this book at all, because you don't need it.
Right.
But in the world that we operate and we navigate in, whether you in Philly, Oakland, Detroit, or wherever, you better know how to navigate this thing, or you will be taken advantage of. Or we will continue to exacerbate a situation where less than 30% of black kids are reading on grade level across this country. And then when a school makes 3-point gains, they popping champagne.
Right.
And so they don't do that in other communities with affluence, right? And so I just want to make sure that I give you the armor and I give you a sword. I'm not promising you the victory in the battle, but I'm promising you that you'll be more equipped to give a valiant effort. And I feel like that's all our people need at sometimes, right? Just give me a chance. If the window is cracked and the door is closed, I'm going through the window. And most of the parents that I work with understand that concept. And if somebody does not understand that concept, it wasn't written for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, if something happens to my grandson or granddaughters, I'm going to have to give you a call. Okay? No, but you know what? To be honest with you, this book gives me the knowledge. You know what I mean? This book gives me the resources. This book is so amazing. And all right, so I wrote stuff down, but right now I just want to ask another question. With these parents right now, there's so much going on out there. They're trying to pay the bills. They're trying to feed the kids. They're paying for gas, although gas is not so bad right now, but groceries are. I want to get my parents to a point to even want to do more work. How do you do that?
Well, look, I'll be very honest with you, and it's not always a nice answer. I put the tool there, the water is there, you gotta drink it. And I think that the world is gonna keep turning, and what I would tell parents is, look, you can have a teacher that's the most loving that you think is incredible, and next year they're gonna get another set of 26 kids, and they're gonna keep doing their thing. You have a moment in time with your kid, with your grandkid, with the kids that you're advocating for. So it would behoove you to figure that out. And if you got another way that works and that's doing better, by all means, God bless. I don't feel any kind of way about it. This is just another set of armor and tools that kind of equips you to be able to go into that battle. And, and unfortunately, there are some cases where you got to try to convince people to do certain things. And here, listen, man, it wasn't my parents all the time that stepped in and did that. It was, my basketball coach at the boys club. It was Officer Dodd, who was the coach on the PAL League. It was a favorite teacher at a school. It was somebody else's parent that might have, that made me go to a college fair, you know what I mean? And put us in a car and made that happen. You do the best you can, you pray for some favor, and then you deal with the consequences. And you got to just roll and move forward. I think in this ed space, and this is part of the reason why I'm half in and half out, right? I'm gonna be very honest, and I like this platform and Chris and the team, so I don't need to be on scripts. I hate working in this industry, man. I work in this industry. If I would have made it in basketball, I would have never did this. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I think in education, a lot of people do fall into it. I'm grateful for what I get to do. But it's different doing a job out of a sense of duty versus being a sports agent, which is something that I really, really, really wanted to do. And I come from a community where it was difficult, and you did see, my parents were both in and out of jail birds. You know what I'm saying? I went to NA meetings with both of my parents. I've had friends that were killed. I come from a place, I am a square, but I am a square from Oakland, which is very different than a traditional square. And I don't do well in this sector. I don't do well with all this posturing. I don't do well with people talking so confidently about education, like they got it figured out, when the emperor really don't got no damn clothes on.
Right.
And nobody's figured it out because our kids are still struggling. So this is but one piece that goes into the pantheon of potential tools. So I just say all that to say, you know, Mama Toya, that just to really hone in on this stuff, you can do everything you can to try to get a parent to do what they need to do. Some will and some won't. And I was the one advocating for myself at 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17. And so that's why I built so much in my young people in my organization, because don't tell me what a young person can't do, because I was a latchkey kid. I raised my brother and sister during those times. I went to 11 elementary schools. I lived in 4 shelters. I visited parents in jail. I covered for them when somebody came by and they was high or whatever the case is. And I've also watched people die. Like, so, you know, I'm not talking about fair right now. I'm talking about getting somebody over the line. And everybody don't understand that. And it takes a special group to do that. So if those parents don't do it, then hopefully that kid will have it or somebody else will pick it up. But I believe in God and angels, and, you know, sometimes somebody comes and sadly sometimes they don't.
You know, it's funny. It's like we're servers. Like we're servers. Like I've served the parents. That's what I mean by server, right? And it's tough to stay in this business. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough. And I'm calling it a business because that's how it's run. That's how education is run, like a business. You understand? And I just want to know, like, how do you, like, just keep motivated? How do you stay motivated?
Oh, I don't. I don't. Like, I have a few friends. I have people that I work with that I like working with. And, you know, I came into this industry very bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I wanted to be friends with everybody, especially when I started seeing these black spaces and stuff like that. And then I started to meet people and get to know people. I made my own mistakes in that or whatever, and, you know, things that was done to me, things that I've done, whatever the case was. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm not here to be friends with any of you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have friends are for friends, and this is work, and this is business, and that's what it is. I have to treat it as such. The same rules that apply to hustlers applies to people that's doing this type of work. And I've learned, you know, there are people that are black in these spaces, and there are people that are wearing black in these spaces, and the people that need to understand that, understand it. And so I'm not built out for this. What I am built for, and what I try to do, and listen, an elder told me, she called me Dr. Cole, and I said, you ain't got to call me that. And she stopped me, she looked at me, and she checked me, and she said, respectfully, young man, that's not your degree, that's ours. That belongs to us. And what she was saying is that I'm a reflection of her and of them, and who could not do this stuff. I have a job to do. I need to focus on doing that job, and then I'll take care of myself on the back end. And if that means leaving the space, then leave it. If that means, you know, you do what you gotta do, but you have a community around you that you are building, and that will be better because you existed and because I just wrote some words, you activate them. So I thank you. Like, it ain't about what I'm doing. Now it's about what you're doing. So this means nothing if nobody picks it up, but you did. And you continuing to do it. And you continue to carry that legacy on, and I'll write the next one and let you do more of it. So, you know, hopefully that made sense.
It did make sense. I mean, I guess, you know, for me, right, it's been really tough because I've done it really right and really wrong, right? And, you know, my kids went to Catholic school growing up, and I spent a lot of money doing that. And in 12th grade, my son got, like, kicked out of school, expelled from the Catholic school system in 12th grade. Okay, so, and then I have this other little child at the time, and he wasn't reading on grade level, and then I found a charter school, right? And he went to that charter school. And then in just about a year, he was on grade level, and everything was great. And then, like, on the second day of 10th grade, he was hit by a car. Right? Suffered a traumatic brain injury. Was in a coma for 2 weeks, Cole.
Oh,
2 weeks, 10 years. This 10 years ago, you know, this year. And through that, he learned differently, you know. And I actually took, when he was getting his IEP written, it was at the hospital, Children's Hospital, and everybody was there. Neurologists, speech, OT, PT, and this charter school. You know, and Children's Hospital here in Philadelphia, which is one of the biggest children's hospital across the U.S., you know, they were, like, amazed to see that this school came out and actually help us write the IEP because they never saw that before. So, I'm still on this charter schools board, which is great.
If you are a Black person and your schooling stops in that place that was not built for you, that was not built to lift you up, that was not built to teach you who you were, it was built to establish and maintain a status quo of supremacy in this place and nationalism, and this is the thing, I'm not even saying it with emotion. Like empires don't build schools to take down the empire, they build it to strengthen it. And so I just understand those rules, and I'm telling Black people, you need to tap into your invisible institutions. That is your churches. Come
on now. I got to preach. Come on, you preaching now, because I just got to say, come on.
That is your community organizations. That is your family. That is somebody else's family. That is people that you like. That is people that you don't like. That is people that are around. Like that is, you have to invest in that to build out a whole human being that has their humanity spared. So that's what I think, and it don't really matter what nobody else thinks to me on that. And I'm gonna ride with that, and it is what it is.
I just want to say one more thing too, right? In closing, right? Because the funniest thing is, right, and I'm gonna speak for me and my target audience or who I am. Okay, I'm a grandmom, and I'm starting a whole new life, right? A whole second career, right? My second career is going back into the classroom, right, and working part-time. So I want to say, like, to the grandmothers out here, right? You know who I'm talking about. To the grandmothers out here, right? You could go back into the school. These schools need grandmothers in there. These schools need grandmothers to build that community, to excite the parents, to do what the parents maybe can't do. Because if you retire, you could go in, you could help the children read, you could tell them their manners, because I don't know what happened to some of these parents, but I'm not going to go there, right? The thank you and you're welcome and all that. I mean, schools are a great place for grandparents.
Well, I'll say this, and I know they ready for us to close out, but if you got master teachers, if you got master tutors, if you got master doctors, then I think we should think of many grandparents as master parents. They've been through it, they've made those mistakes, they've learned. Who gives better hugs than the grandmama that done raised a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old? So take that wisdom, take it for the gold that it is, see it as the value, and you use it and you spend it like a rich person. And that would do wonders in your community and in your school. I want to thank Ed Post. I want to thank this whole team and for giving us this opportunity. But most of all, I want to thank you, Mama Toya, for your belief in me, your love for me. There's nothing in you that said that you had to love me and accept me and adopt me in the way that you have. And I'm truly, truly grateful for it and for you. And I truly love you. Thank you so much.
I love you too. Thank you, Ed Post.